Yeah, that's 5.
And that should be 2 the mic. Okay. And 3, 4. Okay. I can try.
The VC system's not back on.
Okay, well, I can try.
Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Opérateur?
I gotta. No. Since this go for a second, I think I just cycled the power.
Bonjour, opérateur.
On now?
Well, it's getting power. It's PoE, isn't it?
Yep. Is it going to the TC okay?
No, I can't get the line working for the telephone line.
TC unit.
Welcome to the government teleconferencing. Veuillez rester.
Bon matin, Jacques.
Hey, salut Paul, ça va?
Participants, please stand by. A conference will begin momentarily. À tous les participants, votre conférence débutera sous peu.
Good morning. As I make this announcement, we are in yet another lockdown. we marked yet another Easter without visiting with our loved ones. We are getting slammed by a third wave of COVID-19. We're basically right back where we were 1 year ago. Canadians are understandably frustrated and anxious. It didn't have to be this way. Other countries are reopening. Others are being spared from some of the serious risks of a third wave. Cette situation est inacceptable au Canada, notamment pour un membre important de G7. Cela n'aurait pas dû se passer comme ça. Nous sommes ici car la réponse des libéraux a été lente et maladroite à chaque étape. We are here because the Liberal response at every stage has been slow and confused. It was also incredibly disappointing to see the Liberals continue to help their friends with contracts and special access, even in the midst of a national crisis. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were caught unprepared. They made bad decisions that put Canadians at risk and will make our economic recovery more challenging. While racking up bigger and bigger deficits, they decided that pandemic preparedness wasn't a priority and cut funding for key programs, including Canada's world-leading pandemic early warning system. They depleted Canada's PPE stockpile, let vital equipment expire, attacked the pharmaceutical industry, and politicized the Public Health Agency. Les libéraux n'étaient pas préparés quand la menace de la COVID-19 est apparue. Ils ont pris plusieurs mauvaises décisions. Présentement, nous devons faire face aux conséquences néfastes de ces mauvaises décisions. Les libéraux ont d'abord nié l'existence d'un risque pour le Canada. Ensuite, ils ont attendu trop longtemps pour fermer les frontières. They ignored the warning of scientists within their own government and across Canada on the transmissibility and threat of COVID-19 and the importance of screening at borders, mask wearing, evidence-based contact tracing, and domestic vaccine production. Companies with Liberal-friendly lobbyists or close connections to the Prime Minister or his inner circle received preferential treatment in the awarding of contracts. As we enter the third wave of COVID-19, Canada is the only country not following the Pfizer vaccine dosing guidance. The Liberal government has forced a dosing regime that is off-label for this new vaccine only because they are receiving insufficient supply in comparison with other countries. This is leading to a further erosion of public confidence. Les travailleurs de la santé en première ligne ont été laissés à eux-mêmes. Pendant ce temps, les directives de la santé publique étaient contrôlées ou bloquées. Les libéraux ont laissé le virus se propager. Cela a augmenté la peur et l'anxiété de la population, en plus d'avoir entraîné des cycles répétés de confinement et la mort tragique de milliers de Canadiens. Last spring, when it was clear that vaccines would be the key tool to turn the page in this crisis, Justin Trudeau dropped the ball completely. He turned to China, of all countries, to partner on the making of a vaccine. It was the worst in a series of poor decisions, and it is why we are lagging the developed world today. We are still scrambling to catch up. As of April 1st, only 1.8% of Canadians have been fully vaccinated. In terms of the rest of the world, we rank 44th, behind countries like Azerbaijan, Costa Rica, and Serbia, according to the New York Times vaccine tracker. C'est une honte nationale, spécialement dans un pays aussi fort et prospère comme le Canada. Tout cela est parti au passé maintenant. What matters is the future. What matters is that this never, ever happens again. Last month, Canada marked a National Day of Observance for those lost to the pandemic. But to truly honor their memory, we must pledge to learn from the mistakes made and improve our resilience and readiness as a country. Our attention should be on getting the country back on its feet. But when the pandemic is over, we need answers. We need to know what worked and what didn't. We need complete transparency and accountability. A Conservative government will call a public inquiry to examine every aspect of the government's pandemic response. We also call on the government to appoint a special monitor from the Office of the Auditor General to track the pandemic response in real time to ensure that valuable lessons learned are captured for future emergency readiness. Un gouvernement conservateur va exiger une enquête publique pour examiner les différents aspects de la réponse du gouvernement fédéral contre la pandémie. Nous demandons également au gouvernement de nommer un moniteur spécial du Bureau du vérificateur général pour suivre la réponse de la pandémie en temps réel, afin de s'assurer que les leçons apprises soient prises en note. L'enquête va veiller à ce que les leçons tirées de cette crise soient diffusées publiquement. Ces leçons vont aussi être adoptées immédiatement. Le Canada doit être préparé face aux menaces futures. Comme pays, nous ne pouvons pas nous permettre d'échouer à nouveau. Il faut assurer la santé et la sécurité des Canadiens. C'est ma priorité. The appointment of a monitor will ensure that there is the ability to learn from missteps in as close to real time as possible. A public inquiry will ensure that all lessons learned from the crisis are publicly aired and improvements can be immediately adopted. Canada must be better prepared for future threats. We cannot afford to once again fail to keep Canadians safe. To secure the future, we must learn from the past. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
We'll now start the question period. Nous allons maintenant commencer la période de questions. Et en rappel, une question de suivi. One question, one follow-up. Opérateur, on a une première question.
Thank you. Merci. We'll now take questions from the telephone lines. If you have a question and you're using a speakerphone, please lift your handset before making your selection. If you have a question, please press *1 on the device's keypad. Nous allons maintenant passer une période de questions. Si vous utilisez un téléphone main libre, s'il vous plaît, soulevez le combiné avant d'effectuer votre sélection. Si vous désirez poser une question, veuillez s'il vous plaît appuyer sur les touches étoile 1 de votre appareil. Alors, nous avons une première question de Hélène Buzetti, les coops de l'information.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur O'Toole. Vous dites encore une fois, on est en confinement alors que d'autres pays commencent à réouvrir. Êtes-vous en train de dire que le Canada ne devrait pas se reconfiner, qu'on devrait nous aussi réouvrir pour faire comme les autres pays du G7?
Merci pour la question, Hélène. Nous sommes en train de la troisième vague de la pandémie à cause d'une approche lente par le gouvernement Trudeau, lent avec un plan pour les vaccins. Et c'est pourquoi on va avoir une troisième vague plus sévère que les pays comme les États-Unis et le Royaume-Uni. C'était à cause d'une approche lente et tout le temps confus de le Premier ministre. C'est pourquoi aujourd'hui, je viens de demander une enquête publique après la pandémie et un moniteur spécial pour examiner notre réponse comme un pays.
Oui, donc ça veut dire que, mais je vous demandais si vous prenez acte de la situation ici dans les circonstances, on doit quand même reconfiner. Mais vous parlez d'enquête publique. Est-ce vraiment le bon moment alors qu'on est encore en train de gérer les vaccins, les équipements, les confinements, les décès, les CHSLD, etc.? Est-ce que c'est vraiment la meilleure utilisation de nos ressources en ce moment de demander une enquête publique? Merci.
Merci pour la question. Après la pandémie, oui, c'est totalement approprié d'avoir une enquête publique pour restaurer la confiance des Canadiens dans notre système et dans notre gouvernement fédéral. En même temps, maintenant, on doit avoir un moniteur spécial d'examiner toutes les décisions par le gouvernement pendant la pandémie parce qu'on doit apprendre les leçons pour le bien-être, pour la santé des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Ça serait ma priorité comme Premier ministre.
Opérateur, une autre question.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Ian Bailey, the Globe and Mail. Line open.
Mr. O'Toole, tell us a bit more about what you'd like to see in a public inquiry, what kind of leader of such an inquiry you'd like to have, and what kind of timelines you'd like to see for such a probe, what you think it might accomplish.
Thank you, Ian. The public inquiry would be a public demonstration that we were going to put the health and well-being and the response by the federal government in the time of crisis, put that at the forefront to show Canadians we've learned the lessons. Having a prominent former jurist or someone that would be above any political fray would be important. I'm asking for a special monitor to be created now to make sure in real time we examine decisions made so that there can be transparent examination in the future. The government was late at the border, late on securing rapid tests, late now on vaccines, and that's why we're having a more severe third wave. Canadians want to know that we can restore confidence and self-reliance as a country, and that's what this public exercise will do.
Follow up?
Thank you. No, thank you very much.
We'll now go in the room for a question.
Hi, Mr. O'Toole, Mackenzie Gray with CTV. In your opening remarks, you criticized the government for not following the 21-day product monograph on Pfizer in terms of the first and second dose. Are you saying then that you think the government should change course and go back to the 21-day for the first and second dose?
Thanks, Mackenzie. I've said the three key tools that the government has throughout this pandemic are vaccines, rapid tests, and information. Canadians are losing confidence in the decisions related to the Pfizer vaccine and the safety and efficacy of our various programs. We're the only country that is deviating from the product monograph for Pfizer. The company itself is asking the government not to do this, and public health officials have acknowledged the only reason this is being done in Canada is because of insufficient vaccine supply. So we don't have a science problem. We have a supply problem courtesy of the Trudeau government. And what we would like to do is show Canadians that there are no risks to the efficacy of the Pfizer vaccine by their political decision to delay the second dose.
So is that a yes or no on that? Just to get you to respond to that. But secondly, your health critic, Michelle Rempel, has been quite vocal on the fact that Health Canada has been saying that the AstraZeneca vaccine is safe and effective to give to all Canadians, yet NACI has been saying that it should only be given to Canadians over 55. Do you think the current setup that we have with having Health Canada be the regulator, yet NACI still having some influence over what is done, is an appropriate setup for how the vaccine discussion or rollout has been going?
I hold the Minister of Health and the Prime Minister responsible, Mackenzie, for the confusion that has been caused by the intersection between the minister's comments, the Public Health Agency, Health Canada, and the fact that many of the pharmaceutical providers don't support some of the decisions being made by the committee that's been created in conjunction to the department. There's a confused approach by the government, slow and confused at every step, which is why today we're calling for that public inquiry post-pandemic and the appointment of a special monitor today. But the government needs to improve the way it's securing the confidence of Canadians in our response to COVID.
Good morning, Mr. O'Toole. Man Hamidi with the Canadian Press. The military prosecutor in Iran has charged 10 officials this morning over the shutdown of the Ukrainian plane that killed 176 people in Iran. Do you have any? I need your comment on this, and I need you to know whether you trust the justice system in Iran to investigate this accident and get the truth as the victim's family are calling for.
I do not trust the justice system in Iran, nor do I really trust anything that comes from the regime in that country, which is why Parliament several years ago voted to list the RRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, as a terror entity. operatives from that corps were involved in the decision related to the shooting down of a Ukrainian jetliner that killed dozens of Canadians. We must have public pressure for a fulsome inquiry and examination, and the regime should be held to account for the liability of the lives lost. I would like to see Mr. Trudeau move swiftly on naming the ROGC as a terror entity.
So, do you see like there are like specific steps that Mr. Justin Trudeau should take to put more pressure on Iran to tell us the truth of what happened on that night? Is there specific steps that Trudeau should take now?
Well, Mr. Trudeau, as Prime Minister, has run into the hard reality of dealing with regimes like Iran, like the communist regime in China. Both countries that Mr. Trudeau, at the beginning of his time as Prime Minister, said he was going to improve relations with. Both we've actually been on the receiving end of bad relations with respect to the communist regime in China. But of course, the horrific shooting down of the jetliner. We've lost Canadian citizens in notorious Evan prison, including Professor Syed Imami. Mr. Trudeau has not held the regime accountable to the extent it should with sanctions and diplomatic pressure. A conservative government would.
On me fait signe que c'était tout pour les questions aujourd'hui. That's all the time we have for a question today. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.